Yeah.
Take 3 artists, of course.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, well, I've been spending the past 2 weeks just writing artist statements, it seems like. So. I'm David Ruth, and I make cast glass sculpture, some of which ends up as architectural inserts and projects. And then on the side, I make some cast paper pieces, which are wall hanging pieces. It's kind of a soft relief from the glass. But glass is my primary interest, and it's been my interest for years. Let's see, how did I get started? They asked me that out there. My parents sent me to an arts and crafts class when I was like 8 or 10 years old, and I made a little mosaic glass tabletop, which I actually still have. And then years later in college, I met people who were working with stained glass and had scraps, and I made more mosaics. And then I met a guy who was making his own glass for dalle de verre, which is a kind of thick stained glass that's set in concrete. It makes these big beefy windows. He was French, and he imported the technique from France, but couldn't find any glass to use in the United States, so he started making his own down in LA, and I went there and studied with him, Roger Dari Carrera, and was utterly taken by molten glass and how it poured and what you could do with it. And I've been working with it ever since. It's 50 years now.
My name is Amir Salamat. I am a painter. My medium basically goes from oil all the way to acrylic, latex, and other stuff like pastels. And my paintings basically I have developed my own personal style, basically looking at other people's work, learning from them, and developing my own ideas using some of those approaches. And I have been painting since I was 14 years old, so it's been a long time. And I started with oils, and then I went ahead. Nowadays it's mostly acrylic because it's faster. I'm becoming less patient as I age. So yeah, it's acrylic, latex sometimes. I sometimes mix all of these along with pastel and other material on my paintings.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Lugris. I'm a painter. I'm a Uruguayan, Korean, Spanish American painter. So many of my paintings are on multiple canvases that don't perfectly connect. So when I was growing up, a lot of people were looking at me with these kind of quizzical looks like, where are you from? Where are you from? And I'm like, I'm American. But they're like, no, really, where are you from? And I would say, well, my mother is Korean, but she grew up in Argentina. And my dad is from Uruguay, but his father is from Spain. And my grandparents on my mother's side are from North Korea. And everyone would kind of look at me very lost and with these quizzical looks. So I paint on multiple canvases because I feel like when you're coming from an Asian background and a South American background and a European background and a North American background, you have many different perspectives of how you're seeing the world. And just like people were giving me these quizzical looks when they were looking at me and trying to understand how a Korean lady would end up with a Uruguayan man and a Korean lady would speak Spanish, I wanted to make that same effect with the paintings. So they don't perfectly come together. The audience has to work to see where things match and and pull them together themselves.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mirabelle Wiggin. I'm a painter. I work primarily with oil paint. To summarize my practice, I'm really interested in how one navigates our immediate environment, and particularly I'm interested in like the ecological phenomena that's happening in the spaces that I inhabit. So my work is really about responding to that, and as my work has shifted, I primarily focus on ecological disasters, and now I'm shifting into another direction and really thinking about paintings that focus on resilience, rejuvenation, and growth, and collaborative relationships with the human and non-human actors in our environment.
Hello, my name is Callan Porter Romero. I'm from Oakland, California, and my art practice is mixed media painting. I use recycled materials such as cardboard and fabric to emphasize the dimensionality of the human body, and I focus primarily on hands interacting with plants or their environment.
Oren Carpenter. My medium that I use is mixed media, and acrylic really is the dominant material that I use in my work. It's socially conscious. I like to title myself as an artivist, but even both my collage work and my abstract work, it actually portrays both my voice and the vision. And my whole goal with my work is to invite people in, not only to kind of understand my perspective, but for us to kind of create that dialogue, especially that uncomfortable conversations that we have in an ever-changing world. I like my work to, what I like to say is shows kind of us breathing through change. And so that's the goal of my work, is to just kind of help create a platform to where we can have deep conversation and that uncomfortable conversation, and hope everyone who encounters my work can leave with a different perspective.
My name is Marvin Perryman. I work with oil paint. I have for about the last 8 years. I've been an artist all my life, but I've been an oil painter for a short time. The work has evolved. I began really as a realist figure painter, and it developed into landscape when COVID hit and we couldn't get a model in the room, and they became increasingly abstract until I finally started abandoning representation entirely and worked through a number of different modes in abstraction. Kind of came back to touch on landscape again, so I would describe my current work as being either landscape handled abstractly or non-representational abstraction with a landscape kind of framework undergirding it.
Well, I saw Courtney's post on Instagram, came across my feed maybe more than once, and I looked at it and followed it and took a picture of it, saved it, and then we discussed it a little bit. I didn't know what it was exactly, but then I wrote her and she explained what the program was, and I'd never heard anything like it. And you know, what the hell? Somebody's got to try something new, and let's go with this, because it might be a way to move pieces. I've got older pieces that they're sitting there in the dark in boxes. They could be out in the light with somebody enjoying them. So here I am, and I'm just meeting everybody else tonight except for Kevin, who with Courtney came over to the studio a few weeks ago.
I got the notice from a dear friend of mine who is a director of a gallery, and she sent it to me, and I looked at it, and it looked and sounded very exciting and interesting. So I decided to get in touch, find out what exactly they're trying to do, and I had a chance to talk to one of the founders, and it just seems like a very interesting idea, because it's, I can say, semi-educational too, because they are introducing a lot of people to some arts that they may or may not have had access to. So that part of it is, to me, rather exciting. And I think, you know, I have met them, and they seem like wonderful people with a good purpose to do this.
I feel like we have a lot of people that have learned about art growing up, but were never given an opportunity to really understand the value of art and to be able to experience art. To me, art needs to be inclusive. art needs to include everybody and allow for everyone to be able to experience it. So the thing that I loved about C-lective was this idea of bringing the artwork straight to the collector, of bringing it into their home where they could experience it in the comfort of their living room, their kitchen, their bedroom, whatever, but in a space that felt like literally home, like it's someplace that feels familiar. And then I was also really excited to meet more of a community of people that are like-minded, that can appreciate the value of my work, and that can hopefully be inspired by it.
Yeah, well, my friend Jennifer told me about this and connected me with Courtney, and I'm really excited about working with this collective and meeting other artists and networking, and also getting to know collectors personally. I think is a really great opportunity.
It's because of the community aspect, as well as the idea that people aren't really interacting with your art, especially because the art world itself is very opaque. And so this is one way that you can increase accessibility to local art, and also get to know the community better in a more intimate in a more intimate space. So I do appreciate that.
Different reasons for joining C-lective. One, of course, knowing the founders of it. A wonderful family who loves art, all aspects of it, both the artists and the artwork. And of course, Courtney being an artist herself, watching her grow as an artist, truly understanding the different perspectives and appreciating and respecting those perspectives. So that was the first thing. And not only that, the model that they've created. It's a model that I feel is really geared for the artist. Unfortunately, in the art world throughout time, it seemed like the art world was more for the collectors and the gallery owners. And even though the artists were the ones who supplied, right, the demand, it seemed like the models that were out there weren't necessarily for the artists. So that's, I think, is the main reason, right? Or the two main reasons why I wanted to join C-lective.
Well, I love to talk about art, and so it is a community of people who are interested in art and artists. So it does provide that opportunity. I have only been looking to exhibit and sell the last couple of years, and this, I think the thing that excites me the most is the opportunity to reach an audience that I can't reach on my own. To find people who have skills at finding those kind of audiences that I don't have.
You know, I always liked art, but I thought that my contribution would be more standard and straighter than that. But when I was in college, I was exposed to so many different things, including psychedelic drugs and a lot of things which made me want to own more breadth for my own creativity than I saw people having. Like, I had a job in a plant physiology lab for a while, and I would get the professor's abstracts that he would get in the mail. They'd be these little brief summaries of the papers that people had written. And the topics that people wrote were so narrow and so focused on one little tiny microscopic piece of knowledge that they would then connect with these other pieces of knowledge to try to build an understanding of something. It wasn't for me. I wanted every color in the rainbow, you know, from purple to red, and I wanted to be able to throw them around and express them, and I just didn't see the type of science that I saw being done, or engineering for that matter, having that kind of breadth of work. So I fought being an artist for a long time. And then once I met Roger Dari Carrera and melted the glass, I pretty much went with it from there. I've thought about using it in some utilitarian ways. I'm still very much interested in architecture, and I grew up in some architecturally significant houses in the East Bay. But my main interest has been around making glass light up and to become sculptural or architectural in its various incarnations.
I was born into a family that did support art and encouraged it. My oldest brother and one of my sisters are both artists, and actually my sister is probably my first inspiration to do art. I used to steal her oil paint and started painting like that. And after a while I got into it, and once you get into it you get hooked. And once you get hooked, it's hard to get away from it. So over the years, even though I went into different directions professionally, but I kept on painting, and I was able to put together a large volume of work. And I started doing, as I said, oils, and then it just got a little bit too slow for me because I'm not that patient anymore. So I'm working with acrylics, latex, and other medium, add them all together depending on what the subject matter is. And sometimes you need a different texture to present an idea. My paintings go from social issues to observations and what I see in the world out there, and if I want to express an idea. Some of my paintings may look real busy and a lot of action happening inside it, so it does require somebody to spend a little time and kind of get familiar with the work and see what they can see in it. So that has been what has driven my work.
People are all born creative. So I like to remember the book of Genesis in the Bible. It says that we are made in the image of God. Well, what does that mean? Well, God is the creator, and we as people are also creators. So I always needed to make something with my hands. And when I was very young, I was painting. And my parents loved New York City, so they would take me to MoMA, they would take me to the Whitney, and I grew up looking at a lot of art. That being said, my mom is a very stereotypical Korean mother, and she told me that I could study anything but art. So I ended up studying sociology and really thinking about how society informs us and how society, we make a lot of individual decisions that we think are individual, but they're actually heavily influenced by the culture and the society that you're born into. And right now, the work that I'm making is wrapped into that major that I studied when I was younger. So I make a lot of work about human experience and about generational knowledge that gets passed down from the grandparents to the parents, to the children, and to the babies. And so, hold on, I want to go back because now I'm thinking I should talk about the plants. So, what was the question again?
Yeah.
The thing that inspires my current practice is gratitude and appreciation for life. My grandparents escaped North Korea. My mother married my dad, so she was the oldest of four, and she was told you need to marry a Korean, and she was the only one to defy her parents and marry a Uruguayan. And when I think about that, and I think about how odd it was for a guy from South America, from Uruguay, this tiny little country, to meet my mom, who was born in South Korea but raised in Argentina, so she ended up learning the Spanish language and adopting most of that culture, to meet my dad in New York City, for me to be born. Like, the chances are just so odd. So most of my work is gratitude and appreciation for this chance that I have been given in life to be able to be here and be alive. So I think a lot about how there was such a small chance for me to be born. And my mother almost died when she had me. So both of us, I was an emergency C-section, my mom went into a coma, and both of us almost lost our lives. So that's even on top of the fact that these people from many different backgrounds came together. And when I think about that, I think I don't want to waste my life. So most of the plants that I paint, they are a reminder that each of us was put here on earth to fulfill some kind of purpose. And by nurturing that, or giving water and, putting the right kind of nutrients in the soil, that purpose can really grow into something absolutely beautiful. So my art, the plants, the people, they're to remind everyone of the power, the potential that lies within them. That if you nurture it and you water it, it can really grow into something fabulous.
Well, let's go way back. When I was really young, I was always drawing and like in this kind of like imaginative space since I was left alone a lot of times. So I was like coming up with all these stories. But I never really thought about like being an artist. I didn't know that was like a career path. And actually, when I was like going to college and trying to figure all that out, I thought I wanted to study visual culture and maybe be an anthropologist. When I was in college, I took that first like painting class. And I was like, whoa, I really love this. Like, I can make things and like respond to like the world around me. And so my practice, even since undergrad, has always been about me being in the environment, understanding the spaces I navigate. And then I found out as I was doing that practice early on that this comes back to actually my childhood and how I was like navigating being in a multicultural, multi-ethnic home, a multi-generational, multi-ethnic home. And yeah, all the spaces of our home were like what we decided that would be, right? Like this is how we build ourselves up and understand our identities, and then how do we navigate that space? How do we move in the world? And my practice has always been about that.
I started becoming an artist. Well, actually, I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was a kid, but I went a different route. I focused primarily on ecology, so that's what my background is in, and worked in biotechnology, but it was during shelter in place where I couldn't go into lab. However, there's just like a large accumulation of material that, because we order a lot of glassware, so I would just steal the cardboard and go home and try to figure out what to do with it. And I just decided that one way I could respond to the world is recreating the human body with that material. And so I was working in lab and painting simultaneously, and then now I'm just focused entirely on painting.
Well, I knew when I was a little kid that I wanted to be an artist for various reasons. One, just struggling at school. This was always my escape. And of course, growing up in the Deep South, I knew I was different. And I had to find a way to embrace my difference. And I was fortunate to have two parents who actually loved art, and my mother would take my brother and I to the library every Saturday, and that's when I learned more about artists who looked like me and understood the superpowers behind it. And I say superpowers because I was a comic book artist, or lover as well. And so I knew art could be my voice to help create. And so with that, I knew that art could be that platform, as I said earlier, to have those uncomfortable conversations and kind of create this world to where you can invite people in and not feel pressured, right? To have those conversations or pressured to see in the same perspective that you do, but allow everyone to kind of come with their own vision, their own voice, and feel comfortable in that.
Well, I've always been an artist. I mean, I can remember I was drawing at 4. I drew comic books for many years. I worked in animation. When I stepped aside briefly from visual art, I designed and built furniture. I worked in 3D modeling and animation, even a little architecture. But I always wound up coming back to this. And I recall I had done a little bit of oil painting when I was 12 or 13. Learning that palette knives make great waves. But I put it aside, and I sort of thought I'd like to come back to that and try it sometime when I got older. And then I turned around and realized I was getting older, and so I better start. So about 8 years ago, I began. And what kind of keeps me going right now, I think, is it's a search for a kind of beauty, not necessarily pretty, but beauty. A need to make things and to test and challenge myself. Because that's my offering.